Good evening, everybody. This is Will DuPree once again here in the KXAN live studio. We are continuing our coverage today of special elections and primary runoffs here across Texas. We do have some results coming in right now, and we are about to hear, as our host of the Sunday political show, State of Texas, Josh Hinkle, stands by at home right now. But we do have some results to be able to share with you and a speech from Royce West, the state senator who's a Democrat running for the U.S. Senate. Let's take a listen as he speaks to his supporters.
How do we make up the margin in terms of where we are in this election? And I'll tell you that we will be looking to the urban counties to make certain that in terms of tabulating the votes from election day, and that will make the determination as to who will be victorious in this particular race. I want to make certain that I thank all of the persons that supported me. I want to make sure that I thank my wife for being my senior advisor. I felt like, you know the story of David and Goliath. I felt like I was battling two Goliaths during this election. But the fact is that we did what we needed to do, and we were very efficient in terms of using the stones that we had in order to be effective in this particular race. And I firmly believe that at the end of the night, that we will in fact be victorious. I'll answer any questions that you might have.
If anyone has a question, please feel free to unmute and go ahead and ask Senator West your question at this time, please. And if you need me to unmute you, just use the hand raise function in Zoom. Senator, we just admitted a couple more journalists, so they may have some questions for you. I'll let them know when they come in. For those of you that we just admitted, Senator West has just made a brief statement, but if you have any questions for Senator West, please unmute yourself and ask directly at this time.
Okay, look for MJ coming real fast there.
All right, everybody. We just heard from State Senator Royce West speaking to his supporters and also taking some questions from reporters. We were going to be taking his opponent in the Democratic Senate primary, MJ Hagar, but as we were switching live sources, she was concluding her remarks there to her supporters. So unfortunately, we won't be able to carry that, but if we will get a recording of it, we'll have that sent to us and be able to share that with all of you who are watching us at home. If you're just joining us, I'm Will DuPree here in the KXAN live studio. Joining me tonight for some analysis is the host of State of Texas, Josh Hinkle. He's at home. We're trying this social distancing thing, doing our best at that. So Josh, thank you so much for being here once again. Again, we are trying to get those remarks from MJ Hagar to you all, but we were not able to get them live, so just bear with us for a little bit longer. We also want to say before I let Josh take over things that there are no election day results yet reported from Travis County. We are continuing to track those results.
Yeah, and I think, talking about MJ Hagar and Royce West, that's been the race that everyone really has been paying attention to all night. I mean, so many people came out just for that race to the polls because they think this is such an important office, U.S. Senate. It's the person that could or could not unseat our incumbent senior senator, John Cornyn, a Republican from Texas, of all places.
That is so true. So I was going to say, with one more look at the results, so we've seen the numbers kind of steadily hover around these particular figures. MJ Hagar leads Royce West at the moment with 52.4% of the vote. Royce West is at 47.6%. So again, we've seen those numbers stay pretty steady throughout the night, really, Josh.
Yeah, it's been neck and neck. I mean, 50% to 50% at one point. And the thing about this race is it's so close that some of these really close races may not even be decided actually tonight because there's a lot of mail-in ballots that are still out there and they don't have to be in until 5 o'clock tomorrow. So this might be one of the ones that we're watching that could spill over onto election Wednesday.
More for us to cover, that's right. We also want to say that there has been a winner decided in the Travis County Democratic runoff for district attorney. and that is Jose Garza, who was the challenger to incumbent Margaret Moore. He has now defeated her, and she has already conceded pretty early this evening, Josh.
Yeah, I think that was another one that, at least here at home in Travis County, a lot of people were watching because that office has so much to do with a lot of the things that are going on right now. I'm so glad that Eric McDaniel is joining us now. This is a professor of government from the University of Texas, and I think that he's perfect to talk about this race, actually, because some of the things that he studies and teaches deal with a lot of the issues that we're talking about. Eric, before you jumped on, we'd just been talking about the Travis County District Attorney race. Do you have any thoughts on how that went? Because we have Margaret Moore, who has conceded, and Jose Garza is going to be the Democrat going ahead in the general election.
This to me was a very interesting race. So given Margaret Moore's campaign 3 years ago, it is interesting to see that, I guess, someone would be more progressive than she is. I think there were some concerns about how she dealt with certain cases, I believe specifically those dealing with sexual violence cases. But I do also think this speaks to maybe an underlying concern about just policing in general and what this means for racial minorities within the community. And what does it mean about the district attorney's office in terms of prosecuting things related to sexual violence, but also how there may be some bias in terms of how people of color are prosecuted as well. And I think, with the resounding turnout, I think this is a sign of an attempt to make what was already seen as an attempt to make a progressive a district attorney's office even more progressive regarding issues of race, but also sexual violence.
We had a KXAN live conversation with the two candidates last week, Will and I did, and it was really interesting to hear them talk about those issues specifically and how race and maybe some certain types of arrests, like maybe minor drug offenses, really play a part in the conversations that go on with what the powers of this office really can do. Any thoughts on that?
Yes. So one of the things that's been pointed out is because we find that we know that whites and people of color will use marijuana, things like that, at the same rate, we find that people of color are 3 or 4 more times likely to be arrested. And so these are things that are on your permanent record. And while people may not be as opposed to the use of marijuana now as they were maybe 10, 15, or even 5 years ago, we do realize this is on your permanent record, so this prevents you from certain jobs and it follows you. But then also having a criminal record prevents you from access to certain loans, living in certain areas. And so something that we might consider to be relatively minor follows them for the rest of their life. But furthermore, that they are more likely to be prosecuted for doing the same thing, whereas their white counterpart will not be prosecuted. And this has been really one of the major concerns about criminal justice reform, of making sure people are punished equally. And so not arresting one group and ignoring the actions of another.
What's going on in the nation and Texas and here in the Austin community when it comes to criminal justice reform, police brutality, racial equality? A lot of this is really going to spill over into our state legislative session that starts in January. And, we're monitoring several of those races tonight because those people will be making very important decisions with those issues when it comes to how the state responds. We've talked a little bit about race, but the other big issue that seems to be on everyone's mind is also going to be a big talker at the legislative session, no doubt. That's the coronavirus and the way that the state is responding to this public health emergency. This is one of your fields of expertise. Talk to us about what you're seeing and what you predict with that.
So what I expect is that there will probably be a significant amount of work to, one, shore up the public health apparatus within the state. I think what we've seen now is that it is not prepared to handle something like this. So one, you need to shore it up to handle this, but then probably expand it. There'll probably be much more resources being put into community clinics, also trying to find ways to maybe expand telemedicine and get information out to individuals quickly. One of the problems you are going to have, though, is that the nature of the legislature is you have a significant number of individuals who are more concerned, who believe that this focus on public health will actually undermine the economy. And so it's going to be very important to see how this tug of war between protecting the economy and protecting the public health plays out within the Texas Senate and within the House.
Yeah, and anything else you predict for that specific issue, coronavirus, when we still have so much of an election season left? I mean, November is several months away.
Yeah, I think one of the things now is we're seeing the cases pile up, but I think once we start seeing the number of deaths, that is really going to kind of hit home. And there is a fear that it may become normalized. So when we think of war, the first few deaths are a shock, but then after that, people get used to it. There is a fear that this may happen with the coronavirus, but I believe because it's happening right here, people can see it as opposed to happening overseas, I think it's going to have much more harmful effects. The fact that you're seeing, 40 pages, a 40-page obituary with people's names being listed linked to the coronavirus, but also people just catching it and suffering from it, that I think it's going to resonate for a while. And it should probably be, it'll be a big issue, specifically when thinking about the schools, because the most recent Texas Politics poll found that less than a third of people believe it's safe for the children to go to school. And that is going to be a big issue of how do we handle this with the schools.
All right. Well, Professor McDaniel, thank you so much for talking with us about these important issues. I know that you're going to stick around with us and be there a little bit later. We'll keep talking with you. I want to go now to Wes Rappaport. Wes, are you there? Did we lose you again? Maybe. Oh, there you are. Wes, I know you've got just a few minutes to talk to us a little bit about the U.S. Senate race that we have been all anxiously watching tonight. MJ Hagar and Royce West. Talk to us. What's going on with all of that right now? I think we may be still connecting to some audio.
It may take just a moment. What I will say is that we were mentioning the Travis County District Attorney race, and Jose Garza has gotten a pretty notable congratulations tweet from Senator Bernie Sanders, the independent senator from Vermont, of course, and former presidential candidate. He has tweeted, "Congratulations to Jose Garza for winning the primary runoff to be Travis County's next district attorney. We need progressive leaders everywhere who will reform our broken and racist criminal justice system, and I look forward to seeing Jose bring change in Texas." Again, Senator Sanders endorsed Jose Garza. Whether that had any kind of effect may have led some voters to the polls to support Jose Garza, but he has gone on to defeat incumbent Margaret Moore for the Democratic nomination for Travis County District Attorney.
Yeah, that's such an interesting race. I mean, when we talk about the endorsements, there were some big names that were mentioned in there, the Castro brothers, and you had Beto O'Rourke at one point. So I think that, being Travis County, the place where the capital is, so much, local versus state politics talked about. This is an office that gets a lot of attention when it comes to so many issues that, are happening even outside the courtroom, jail, police reform, sexual assault, priest abuse. We've talked to Margaret Moore for our, investigations that my team has done in recent years since she's been in office for 3.5 years now, several times. And it just seems like whoever takes the reins of this office next has a lot of work to do.
And Josh, you saw a statement that came in from the Republican who will face Jose Garza in the Travis County District Attorney race. He had some pretty strong words and has even challenged Jose Garza to 3 debates. Whether or not that will actually happen is yet to be determined too.
Yeah, he said that he called Garza anti-law enforcement and had an anti-law enforcement agenda that will make the community less safe. So that's Martin Harry, the Republican DA candidate. I'm interested to move past the runoff season of the election now that we can go on to the 2 political parties running for this office and many other offices. I mean, in a sense, we've been kind of waiting to see what will happen next. And now we know what's going to happen next. So we can move forward and start covering those races in a different way. But, you know, I think it's interesting you said 3 debates, because what, are those going to be like virtual debates every time? You know, I mean.
That's what it's had to have been right now. So who knows exactly. But I mean, what's amazing to me is to think about back in March. That almost feels like a lifetime ago based on all that has happened since then. I mean, Josh, you had talked to some of our experts about this. Not only did the coronavirus pandemic reach Texas and spike recently, but we also had much unrest over police brutality and racial injustice that's happening, particularly police shootings, including of Mike Ramos here in Austin. That's all happened in the span since the last election results were counted back in March. So this is the first time we're getting a chance to see what impact all of that has had on the turnout today.
Yeah. Looks like John Hinkle is joining us now as well. John, you've been covering several races for us tonight. Tell us about, let's take a pause on the runoff election. There was another election happening tonight, a special election to fill the Travis County and surrounding counties Senate seat, the state Senate seat, SD 14, which has been most recently, for a long time, held by Kirk Watson, former Austin mayor and a Democrat. And what's it looking like tonight so far?
Yeah, and while Will pulls up the data on what votes have been counted already, I'll speak anecdotally to what's going on. Sarah Eckhart has a wide margin right now over State Representative Eddie Rodriguez, who those two were considered the top billing for this special election. Now, it's important for us to remember that just because this isn't a runoff, it can still lead to a runoff, right? So if one candidate doesn't get 50% of the vote total plus one, then this goes to a runoff. And right now, the Eddie Rodriguez campaign is banking on that. They're hoping that a strong election day turnout will lead this into a runoff, because I think it's pretty evident based on the vote totals that we have right now, it would be difficult for Eddie Rodriguez to reach that 50% plus one threshold. So right now, all that matters to Eddie Rodriguez's campaign is to hope that Sarah Eckhart doesn't continue to add to the lead that she has over 50% of the vote total.
Now, Sarah Eckhart, former county judge here in Travis County, and also Eddie Rodriguez, a state representative from Austin, both Democrats. Then you've also got the person who's in third place right now, Don Zimmerman, who has been, at least for a while tonight, having some double digits with the percentage of vote that was coming in. You know, with something like 12%, if it did go to a runoff, whoever can get that person's 12%, that would put them in a very competitive stance, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, when you go to a runoff in any election, that nothing is secure by winning this kind of an election and going to a runoff. That's a whole new race. That's more fundraising. That's more TV ads. That's more spending. And Eddie Rodriguez has raised a lot of money, and he has money that he can commit to that next leg of the race should it get there. But Sarah Eckhart, former Travis County Judge Sarah Eckhart's performance tonight in what we've seen from the, I guess this would be early voting totals, right, Josh? Because I still don't believe that we have election day data from Travis County. So that's the other big uncertain here, is that if there was a substantial election day turnout, who does that favor? You know, we don't know, and that will be an unanswered question going into, you know, the late hours of tonight, probably tomorrow, I would imagine.
Yeah. You know, this will be your first legislative session in Texas to cover as a political reporter. Since you're fairly new to KXAN, I've covered a couple of them. It's pretty exciting. You know, 5 months every 2 years, they come together. A lot of these races we're watching tonight will be people that will be taking part in that legislative session. One of the biggest issues that they're going to have to deal with the first session of every decade is redistricting. And that's going to really shape the way that we vote for the next decade. voting lines could be redrawn. You could be in a different House district. You could be in a different Senate district. So, it's really important. I would think it'd be exciting for you to get to cover something like that. It's
very exciting. And I don't think that everyone who is not an in-the-weeds political wonk knows how important redistricting really is. When that census comes out and those lines get redrawn, the control in the House, when Democrats say they're trying to flip the Texas House, the importance is on staking a claim over congressional districts for the next decade. And those choices and those decisions can permeate further than the 1 decade also. So, when it comes to control and power in Congress, in the U.S. House of Representatives, redrawing those districts is key. Look at the Texas 10th Congressional District that I'm covering tonight. You've got a piece of North Austin that just gets a little pocket of liberal voters, and then you've got a whole lot of not that on your way to Northwest Houston. And those kinds of districts are drawn specifically to help one party over the other. That Congressman Lloyd Doggett's district is a roundup district, as they're called. Get as many Democratic voters in one pocket, will concede the seat. And so when you talk about reshaping policy and drastic changes going forward, redistricting, flipping a state house is the way to do that. Can Democrats do that? That's yet to be seen, but that is the major prize that certainly doesn't get talked about enough.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, the process in the legislature, it's that the House has a redistricting committee and the Senate has a redistricting committee. So they're each drawing maps based on, things that they've been advised, population, whatever legalities have come up. And then they'll kind of come together and figure out which maps make the most sense, kind of that compromise. So it's a long process. It is very detailed, but it's really maybe one of the most important things that happens for a 10-year stretch in Texas. And it will also be something that people will not agree on. There's usually a lot of fighting, and it will last well after the session. There will be legal battles, court battles, that kind of thing.
And think about this, Josh, because there's already talk that the census results will be delayed. There are early conversations among those in legislative circles and lobbyists and folks like that who say, a special session there's no debate about it at this point, that because redistricting is going to begin so late next session, many are already talking about the need for more time on the back end.
Yeah. And, bringing up coronavirus, kind of making that delay. We spoke earlier with a UT professor of government, Eric McDaniel, and he really talked about how the coronavirus or public health in general is going to really have a major focus, a renewed focus, hopefully in the next legislative session. He talked about, access to clinics, access to healthcare, that kind of thing. So I imagine that's going to be a lot of what you're covering as well.
Yeah, well, and I'm just excited to be able to go inside the Capitol eventually. Still haven't gotten to do that. I've been here for a few months, and because of the way this is going with the pandemic, I haven't gotten to go inside. Like many Texans haven't gotten to go inside for months either. So that'll be interesting. And on that note, another big story that we're kind of waiting to tell too is that with the Capitol closed and with that access point no longer there, all of this business that happens before session is still happening. You're just not seeing it. You're not hearing about it as much. People aren't running into each other in hallways anymore. So there will be major concerns about transparency and access to power over the next several months and into the next year's legislative session. When you don't have that ability to talk to one of your state representatives or senators as they pass you, or press being able to throw questions at them, problems can arise there. So we're going to be asking those questions over the next few weeks.
There's usually so many big demonstrations depending on what the big topics of the session are. What we're hearing projections about how long this pandemic could last, that might really affect the way that rallies are organized and people are gathered at the Capitol to, protest whatever.
Yeah. And that not having that access is a major issue for us. You get a lot from being able to just I don't want to say corner, but when you get head to head with a lawmaker who maybe isn't returning your emails or your phone calls, when you're face to face, that's a lot harder to dodge. And when interviews are happening over Skype or Zoom, or certain media outlets are getting interviews because of this pandemic, and the excuse being that we need to social distance and limit crowds, which obviously rightfully so, you don't have the same opportunity to press the powerful as journalists do in those press conference settings when there's more than one person, when there's two of us or three of us or four of us. That's not happening right now.
Yeah. Is there, any final thoughts you want to add about what you're seeing tonight, your first election in Texas?
Well, what I'm seeing, at least in what I'm covering, I mean, Senate District 14, if Sarah Eckhart can hold on to that 50% plus one lead, which she appears to still have, that's huge for her campaign to end it here instead of going to a runoff. And in U.S. District 10, Pradesh Gandhi, the doctor of the nonprofit clinic in Austin, raised a ton of money, went up against Mike Siegel, who is much more of a progressive candidate endorsed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. He is holding on to about a 10% lead there, Mike Siegel is. I did not expect a margin like that, but the Mike Siegel's infrastructure they built in 2018 when he only lost to Michael McCall by 4.5 points seems to be really helping him out here. So we'll see as more results come through, but Mike Siegel is in a really good position going into the later hours tonight.
Well, John, thanks for chatting with us. We'll stay with your reporting throughout the night.
Yeah, I got to go on TV in like 2 minutes.
All right. Well, good luck with that. Thank you very much.
See you, Josh.
Where are we at, Will?
All right, I think that means that we are also going to be wrapping up things here shortly, because you and I are both going to be in the 10 o'clock newscast coming up in just a few minutes on KXAN.
Great.
All right, everybody, thanks so much for joining us. If you want to see more results, we're tracking all those numbers coming in live over on our website, KXAN.com. And if you downloaded the KXAN News app, you can find everything right there in the palm of your hand as well. Thanks so much for joining us. For everybody here at KXAN News, we appreciate that. And we'll see you back here another time. Everyone, please stay safe and healthy, and if at all possible, still at home.